I now give the floor to Ms. Helen Hayford.
Madam President, we would like to thank the delegation of the Republic of Malta for facilitating our contribution to this discussion, and also would like to extend our sincere appreciation for the previous briefers for their comprehensive note. Malteser International is the worldwide relief agency of the Sovereign Order of Malta. The order, established in Jerusalem almost 1,000 years ago, enjoys sui generis status as an international sovereign entity, and we utilize our global commitment in providing humanitarian aid in over 120 countries. Malteser International delivers medical support and relief services in areas of the world that experience natural disaster, war, and related conflict. As of today, we are conducting operations in 34 countries and have been serving the Syrian people for over a decade. We are reminded of Security Council Resolution 2254 and its call for all parties engaged in the Syrian conflict to immediately allow humanitarian agencies rapid, safe, and unhindered access throughout Syria by most direct routes and allow immediate humanitarian assistance to reach all people in need. In the intervening decade, while many aid agencies and humanitarian bodies have provided an incredible range of services to the Syrian people, in the words of Secretary General Antonio Guterres, today more people than at any point in the war, 3 out of every 4 need humanitarian aid. More than half the population suffers from hunger. Entire communities are struggling to survive as humanitarian funding has dropped to an all-time low, and roughly half the pre-war population remains displaced inside or outside Syria. As a sovereign international entity without a population or territory of its own, and loyal only to its mission of service to the poor and the sick, the Sovereign Order of Malta has a special closeness to those in need. In a manner of speaking, our citizens are the displaced, they are the dispossessed, those who are left behind and who are forgotten, of whose life we daily form a part. We speak on behalf of their voices, and we would like to share with you some of their stories. Abu Ammar, a 64-year-old Syrian, he was displaced by bombings 6 years ago. He and his children lost almost everything. The earthquake on February the 6th, 2023, took what was left. On that day, I thought that I would die, he told us. But I and my children were able to emerge from under the rubble after holding on for long hours. Today, we are in a camp a year after the earthquake, where we lack the most basic necessities of life. Every day brings back memories of the tragedy of what we lost. Hala's harrowing experience of giving birth amid airstrikes and natural disasters highlights the resilience of Syrian women in the face of adversity. I faced the fear of losing my child twice, she told us. First, during the earthquake, when our house roof collapsed on top of us, by the grace of God, we survived. And then again, during the bombing, just as I was about to give birth. My child and I, against all odds, emerged unharmed once again. However, Hala and her young family continued to live a precarious existence alongside thousands of others amid acute danger, financial constraints, and a rising shortage of food and water. Arish, who's 15 years old, she was born with a growth disorder and needs regular medication. Her family has been living in a tent since the earthquake, forced her family to flee in blind terror at night into the pouring rain. But Arish still has hope. I dream of completing my education, which I had to stop last year because my family could not afford to pay for school and they could not afford to pay for medicine at the same time. My dream is to see children live safely, away from war, away from earthquakes. But Arish is sure that she and many other children have to face the consequences of war and earthquake, and that will have a lasting impact. The Order of Malta is working to help the lives of Abu Ammar, Halaj, Arish, and thousands like them. We are committed to deliver essential healthcare, emergency water, sanitation and hygiene services and livelihood opportunities, working closely with local and international NGOs in order to ensure that we foster local capacity and civil society actions to really make what we do sustainable. We are also committed to protecting what Pope Francis, in a recent declaration, referred to as the infinite dignity, inalienably grounded in his or her very being, which prevails in and beyond every circumstance, every state or situation a person may ever encounter. Up until now, the Sovereign Order of Malta's efforts have directly benefited more than 250,000 Syrians, with 33,000 patients receiving treatment in our supported healthcare facilities. We have a holistic view to health, and therefore we also facilitated more than 50,000 mental health and psychosocial support sessions. But faced with the persistent level of need, our efforts really remain a mere drop in the ocean. Sustained humanitarian support is essential, but humanitarian actors also need to be able to do their work as conflict escalates once again. The Syria INGO Regional Forum note that over 16,000 conflict-related incidents reported by NGOs in the past 9 months alone, an increase by 33%. The increasing frequency of attacks, including airstrikes in densely populated areas, threatens the lives of civilians and humanitarian workers. The innocent are being punished time and time again, to the point that for some, human dignity is really nothing more than a word. We would like to call strongly for a reaffirmation of the commitment by all powers and forces operating in Syria to uphold international humanitarian law while ensuring the protection of civilians. Urgent action is needed to de-escalate violence, facilitate humanitarian access, and protect vulnerable populations, particularly women, children, and persons with disabilities. In the face of mounting challenges, we call on the international community to increase its effort to support humanitarian organizations on the ground and provide adequate funding to meet the growing needs of affected populations. Donors must fulfill their commitments to support early recovery and resilience-building programming, recognizing the importance of addressing medium to long-term needs alongside emergency assistance. Localization efforts should be prioritized with increased support for local organizations to really deliver effective and relevant interventions. We are encouraged by signs that the world is beginning to pay attention to Syria once again. The nation's recent readmission to the Arab League should hopefully be a positive augur, as nations in the region commit themselves to policies aimed at alleviating suffering while helping damaged persons to rebuild their lives. Socioeconomic support must be directed towards those who need it most. This might be part of a coherent policy approach by the international community to foster local agricultural development and the rebuilding of infrastructure in order to improve people's lives, rebuild trust, and give hope to a more positive future. The humanitarian crisis in Syria demands our unwavering attention and collective action. We must stand in solidarity with people in need and work towards a peaceful resolution of the conflict. Let us heed the voices of those affected by the crisis and redouble our efforts to alleviate their suffering and restore hope for a better future. There are glimmers of light in Syria. Let us hope that they are not extinguished again. Thank you, Madam President.